I'm Bethany Baldwin, an event planner turned drama club leader who was looking for an easy, impactful, inexpensive way to create backdrops that kept the focus on my students enjoying the creative process rather than making work for the adult helpers. After 4 years of trial and error, I'm finally satisfied with this backdrop process that I'm going to walk you through in this video. This backdrop frame is collapsible, so it can be moved to different locations easily. It's lightweight for easy rotating during performances, and it's reusable. If your performance is on a large stage, you could consider using 3 backdrops that make a triptych, meaning 3 backdrops that make one image. You could also consider using stage props to bring visual interest out wider to fill your space, or there might already be a really big projecting kind of screen behind the stage for wherever you're performing, and you could put something simple that coordinates with your backdrop behind. I also use this whole process to create the backdrop for my business's booth display, but instead of using a disposable drop cloth, I used a heavy-duty canvas, some primer, a sewing machine to make a rod and pocket style system, and I'll go ahead and link the video to my convention booth setup at the end of this video. The end result will give you 2 sides to paint and a curtain, which provides 3 backdrop options for your play, your variety show, or your event. Here's a list of my supplies, and I'll include some links in the description of this video as well. So the frame. First of all, the backdrop frame I purchased is fairly lightweight, but it was inexpensive, and as long as it's treated well, will provide you with a great reusable backdrop. However, I will be purchasing a higher quality frame as soon as our drama club funds allow. Evaluate your space to pick the best backdrop size for your space. The frame in this video is adjustable. It's a good idea to have the frame set up larger than you want to have it for the performance, because you can trim off the edges later, because the edges of a backdrop tend to not get painted very well by students. Plus, you'll have some of that old tape left over from painting. The frame should be supported underneath by bricks or books so someone doesn't accidentally step on it and bend the frame, even during performances. If you are having small children paint the backdrop, you might want to put it on the ground after your backdrop lines are drawn in to prevent accidental backdrop frame damage. There are 2 sides to these somewhat fragile paper drop cloths. While they are a little fragile, they're also inexpensive, and the stark white makes stunning colors. One side has more of a paper texture, and the other one has a waterproof texture. You're going to want to paint on the paper texture. There's a seam down the middle that you'll want to reinforce with some extra duct tape on the back and masking tape on the front, so you'll need to tape that little flap down. Taping and stretching these drop cloths is definitely a 2-person job, and you'll need to trim the backdrop as you go. Get it stretched nice and tight. It will lose most of its wrinkles and tighten up more once it gets painted. And keep in mind, this isn't Broadway. This is an opportunity for students to be creative, so your best is good enough. All the full-length plays for my Music, Art, and Drama Math Society clubs come with free backdrop images that coordinate perfectly with each play and includes a full-color rendering and line drawing of 2 backdrops and suggestions for the kind of curtains that would work best for that play. I use a projector to trace the line drawings. You should be able to borrow one from your local library. Be sure to stick to a strict color scheme for each show, specific to the mood and style you're going for. I use Canva or a drawing done by me or a student and trace it onto a transparent file folder and project it. It's wise to think about painting a backdrop in layers, from back to front. That back or bottom layer is large blocks of flat color. After the big blocks of color have dried, you can add texture and details, followed by outlines if you want a crisp look. If you do not have students interested in these things, just skip the details. If you do have students who would like to take the images even further by adding things that are not on the original backdrop image, let them do that. Have the backdrop lines done before your painting days, either by a leader or by a couple of students who can draw the lines for you. There are far more advanced ways to project images, but this works for me. You could also just freehand copy the image or ask someone to do that for you. I use a black permanent marker to draw in the image lines. The black marker will probably bleed through the paint, and that's good because you can easily redraw those lines after painting to give you those sharp edges. But this means that any mistakes you make with your markers will be seen easily as well, so be careful. If you are nervous about tracing, use a pencil first. It's so important to get the correct size paintbrush for each space that will be painted. A paintbrush that's too big will make it hard to stain the lines, and a paintbrush that is too small will be frustrating. Flexible, soft, and old paintbrushes are great for texture and unique painting results, but are not good for color blocking those big areas in. Paintbrushes should be flat and have bristles that are soft to the touch but are not limp, My favorite brushes are the ones with the teal blue handles and orange synthetic bristles. Students who love art and painting can take the backdrops home to work on them. Just make sure that they do not make creases in the backdrop if possible. Maybe provide a pole to wrap the backdrop around or a big box for transporting it safely. I absolutely loathe foam brushes. Just stay away. Make sure you show the students how to dip the brushes into paint and scrape off one side clean with the container holding the paint to avoid dripping. If you have students who still want to do more artwork, they can lay the backdrop on the ground and use colored pencils and add some texture, fine details, and things like shadows and depth for your backdrops. Just be careful because that backdrop is fragile. Maybe put some yoga mats on the backdrop for the students to sit on to protect the backdrop. And remember, do not give them colored pencils that do not match the color scheme. Keep it cohesive. Taking the time to come up with a very specific, refined color scheme for your performance will make it feel more professional, cohesive, and it just is more fun to paint with banana yellow instead of primary yellow. I recommend getting some ice cream buckets and reusing them to mix your specific paint colors in advance. Ask students to help do the mixing. Be watching out for my color scheme videos soon. So stop a minute here with me and consider the difference between banana yellow, sunflower yellow, and lemon yellow. They're different. Don't just go to the store and buy yellow. Encourage your students to not do any color mixing while they are doing those big blocks of color. Details, shading, texture, etc. can be added after these first layers dry. I know I'm being redundant, but it's a really, really important thing to get right. Maybe show them this video so they understand. In fact, why not show this whole video at the beginning of your art day? Often mixed colors end up looking like mud. It's perfectly fine to add some details and elements to the backdrop that are not in the color scheme. Just keep them to a minimum. Carefully store your backdrops in a Rubbermaid until you're ready to tape them back up and use them again. Here's an example of how the rotating worked for my play from last year. Students will get paint on everything. They will drip paint. They will have absolutely no idea that they dripped paint. They'll step in it and walk around, and unfortunately, some students will not bother to clean it up. It's a good idea to have a designated meeting volunteer with the sole purpose to manage the paint issues. Also provide clear instructions on brush cleanup, or have an adult ready to do that for you so paint does not end up staining your bathroom walls and your beautiful white sinks. And students, if you're listening, make this job easier for your leader. They're doing a lot of hard work for you. Hopefully you have access to an outdoor hose. Students should be reminded to always wear paint clothes to art days, and if they forget, have them go into the bathroom and turn their clothes inside out. It works. Remember, good art experiences are about the process, not the product. Students want a reason, inspiration, and a place to make and display art and creativity. If you have students that would like to help plan and draw images, invite them to do so. Just make sure it's not adding stress to you as the leader. Other ideas to consider: glow paint and black lights. Use T-squares and levels for good, sharp lines. You could glue fabric or paper or other fun stuff to the backdrops. Try matte, gloss, or metallic paints. And remember to save the plastic tubs that you buy that ice cream in for paint mixing. Sounds like a good reason for an ice cream party too. So for the curtains, be sure that you iron your fabric. You're going to use wire and the backdrop frame hardware to make a line for the curtains to be hung across. Add one piece of wire in the center to help the drooping and give it a solid point in the middle for the curtains to be closed to. Add about 10 rings on each side and a wand to one of the rings to open and close the curtains, and wire to secure the last ring on the outsides of the backdrop to the frame so the edge of the curtain stays exactly where it should be. Make sure your curtains look best when they are closed, meaning when they're covering up a backdrop image. Tuck the sides of the curtain in so you don't see the raw edges. Make sure you remove your curtains when your students are painting. Your curtains don't have to be black. In fact, all the plays I have for sale on my website incorporate a creative curtain pattern to provide a fun third backdrop. And also, curtain fabric could be painted. Please share this video with youth leaders, clubs, and organizations that might be able to utilize this backdrop process, because I had to create this video and this process for myself because I could not find anything that met my club's needs. So I know there are others who feel the same. And I hope to see you over at my website to check out Mad Society.